Hey, welcome back, Knicks fans. Today, I wanted to do a quick analysis. And what we're trying to do, we're trying to look at the impact Jalen Brunson is going to have on the New York Knicks win percentage, so we can see if it's a worthwhile pickup. Obviously, right? I mean, first of all, right off the bat, I do think it's a worthwhile pickup. I think it was a good get. It was a free agency signing, although we paid about 25 million for Jalen Brunson, or over 25 million. I don't have an issue with that. I think that was actually a pretty good signing. I think he is an impact player, and I think this season he's probably going to be able to show that on the New York Knicks. But today we're going to look at how much impact is he going to have on the New York Knicks this season. Now, before I get into it, please take the time to like and subscribe. You can hit the notification bell as well. Please like and subscribe right now, so you can basically see more of my videos and know when it's coming out. But now let's get into it. When we're looking at basically the impact Jalen Brunson has on the New York Knicks, we're essentially trying to take basically the team's PIE, right? And compare with, we're basically taking like all the teams' PIE for the whole league, right? Each team's PIE for the whole league. We're comparing it to the win percentage, and we're going to show basically there's basically PIE is a relationship between PIE and win percentage, and so if you can determine what the team's PIE is, you can basically estimate or take a good guess at what the win percentage for the team is, right? And so, given that's the case, we're basically doing this analysis to see what impact adding Jalen Brunson to the team is going to have on our PIE, and then in turn to see what it's going to do to our win percentage. That's essentially what we're trying to do today, right? And so in this analysis that we're doing, we're assuming that none of the other players on the New York Knicks made any improvements, right? We're assuming that R.J. Barrett, Julius Randle, they repeat the same performance they had last year, and they come in and shoot 40% from the field. That's the assumption that we're making. We're assuming Obi Toppin is going to still be coming off the bench, shooting 52% from the field, but only averaging like maybe 70 points, whatever it was. So that's what we're doing. We're making the assumption that nobody else on the team made any changes. So the only changes that was made on the team to impact the team's PIE was we essentially added uh, we added Jalen Brunson, and we subtracted Alec Burks. And so just wanted to show you guys what that looks like here. So this is basically all the data that I gathered all this data back in I think it was late February or March this year. And this is like 71, 73 games into the season. And so this is a big enough sample size of data to use. We pretty much know what these teams were at this point, right? And we pretty much knew that. For example, if you look at this here, so using the PIE, I was trying to determine who the best teams in the league were. So I ranked the best teams by the PIE with what I call the defensive factor. And if you see here, uh, if you look at these top four teams that I have here, the top four teams in the league, according to this PIE with a defense that includes a defensive factor, it shows that Boston Celtics and Golden State Warriors were top in that top four. Those two teams were in the finals essentially, right? And so that's the reason why I'm doing it, right? Because I believe that PIE, it is a meaningful stat, right? And using it, we can use it to try to take a guess at how well the team is going to perform, right? And so that's essentially what I did here. So I gathered all the stats for every team, which these are basically their averages. I added all of it up here. If you see, these are the totals at the bottom. And then I calculated the PIE here, right? And so, and if you notice, all of it adds up to 100 right here. So, and then I pulled basically the opponent stats for each of the teams, and then also calculated the PIE for the opponents, right? I calculated it, and then the next thing that I did was I took the net of both. So I subtracted the opponent's PIE from the team's PIE to get the net PIE, right? And so that's what we did here. And so we're using this here to try to, to see, to make a prediction, because the Knicks here, if you see here, is 0.23 minus 0.23. And we're trying to use that to see, um, how many games are the Knicks going to win. Again, like I was saying before, if you look at the stats here, I swapped out Alec Burks stats with Jalen Brunson stats. So if you notice here, the New York Knicks, they have right now, after swap taking, subtracting Alec Burks and putting in uh, Jalen Brunson, is saying the New York Knicks are going to average 110 points per game. The offensive stats are really good, are much better. I'm sorry, excuse me. The offensive stats are much better because if you take a look here, these offensive stats are individual stats, right? So the NBA does a very good job compiling the individual stats. But the defensive stats are a lot harder because it's very difficult for them to figure out how many points did the person Alec Burks was guarding scoring Alec Burks. What they do is they basically say, how many points did the opposing team score while Alec Burks was on the floor? And so if you see here, then that means like Alec Burks basically, although he might not be a very good defender, these opponent stats here suggest he's a much better defender because he probably plays with a very good defensive lineup or a better defensive lineup than Jalen Brunson. And so that's what we're seeing here with, like, if we looked at the opponent stats. So if you see here, this plus here is Jalen Brunson because that's the addition to the team. So Jalen Brunson, while he was on the floor, the opponent scored 69.6 points on Dallas Mavericks. And as if you see here, Alec Burks, while he was on the floor, the opponent scored only 62.3 points while he was on the floor. That's a pretty sizable difference, right? But if you go through and look at like all of it, field goals made, right? It's the same thing. Alec Burks had less field goal made on him while he was on the floor than Jalen Brunson when he was on the floor with the Dallas Mavericks. However, these are not individual stats, right? These are basically the team stats, and so this is what's gonna skew the numbers. And so it's possible that this net of minus 0.23 should not be that low, right? It probably shouldn't be that low. It should be probably a little closer to zero than it should not be as low as it is possibly, right? That means if Jalen Brunson in fact is a better defensive player than these stats here suggest. But I just wanted to put that out there because that's going to impact, as you see, if this net PIE is negative, the chances are you're going to win less than 50% of your games. And we're going to take a closer look at all of this on my presentation. And so if you see here, we compared that net PIE. So the other thing I did, that net PIE, so I can actually, when I graph it, it makes it like, it gives a more compelling picture of what's happening. I multiply these by 100 right here, right? And so once I multiply it by 100, this is what we get here. So this is PIE minus opponent PIE. And so that's why I did that. But if you compare it, if you look here, as PIE goes down, if you notice as PIE goes down, so does the win percentage. So it implies there is some relationship between PIE and a team's win percentage. The thing that's really cool about this too is, so that means if you can basically, if you know what a team's net PIE is, right? And you know what the opponent's net PIE is that they're playing against, you can basically, you could basically take both, or you can actually, what you can actually do, I'm sorry, what you can actually, if you know your team's PIE and you know the opponent's PIE, you can basically take that number, basically take the difference, right? If you take the difference, let's say your team's PIE is lower than your opponent's PIE, and you take the difference, it's going to be a negative number, right? And you can use that. I have a feeling if we basically track that every game throughout the season, I think that can also probably, help you guess at what the margin of victory is going to be for each game, right? I haven't done that yet. That's probably the next thing I'm going to do. But right now, we're just basically looking at the PIE versus the PIE for every team in the league versus the win percentage. And as you see, it looks like they move together in tandem. But let's take a look at the graph to see what it really looks like. So with this scatter plot, we didn't have to multiply by 100 here. We left it the same. Uh, and so, as you see here, these dots are almost in a line. So if you drew a line right through the middle and you looked at the distance between the dots and the line, it's such a small, it's such a minimal distance. And so it just shows that uh, as PIE go as the net PIE increases, the team's win percentage increases as well. So that's pretty much what it shows. Now this one here, this is the reason why I multiplied these numbers here by 100, because I wanted to do a line graph here, because the line graph I think sometimes is a little more compelling to look at sometimes for just for regular people that are not like heavy into statistics and stuff like that. It's just a little more compelling to look at. So if you see here, this PIE here is in orange, win percentage is in orange, and they move basically in tandem. If you notice here, as this PIE arrives close to, uh, as this PIE gets close to zero, the win percentage gets to about 50%, right? And then as the PIE turns negative, as it starts going negative, then if you notice here, as it starts to go negative, the win percentage drops below 50% as well. So that's pretty much what we're looking at here. And so then the most important thing is once we do all this math or whatever, we basically were able to arrive at like what we think, what percentage of games we think the New York Knicks are going to win. And so now, like I said, uh, when you take all that information and run all the numbers, it's showing that with the addition of Jalen Brunson, assuming nobody else, there's no improvement from anybody else on the team, to Jalen Brunson alone, offense and defense. And also remember the defense that he's bringing over that he's pulling over from the Dallas Mavericks. That's really Dallas's team defense, right? And so that's impacting. I believe that's having a big impact on this number. If Jalen Brunson is not a bad defender, if he's an average defender, then there's a possibility this should be higher. If you look at Jalen Brunson, right? If you look at his stats, just his offensive stats alone, without the defensive stats, again, assuming we make no improvements to the rest of the roster, RJ Barrett doesn't take a step forward. Julius Randle doesn't take a step forward. They both still shoot 40% from the field. We still have Evan Fournier shooting 41% and playing no defense. Is saying that with the addition of Jalen Brunson, we win 50% of our games. But that's only with his offense, without basically the defensive numbers. And so it looks like the Knicks are, that's what it's showing. If we don't get an improvement from any other player, we add Jalen Brunson, we'll win 52% and 50% of our games. That's essentially what it's showing. And obviously, we're we're hoping it's better than this. We're hoping that we do see some improvement from RJ Barrett, that he doesn't shoot 40% again, and that Julius Randle doesn't shoot 40 or 41% again this year. And so, if we see improvement from those guys, I think, especially with their efficiency, the Knicks will win more ball games, and this PIE will be higher, right? But right now, we're just looking at Jalen Brunson, the impact he would have on the team as he, impact he would have in the team. Looking at the offense alone, he definitely has a bigger impact on the team, right? He has a big impact on the team just stepping on the floor. You know, and so it says with him alone, we're gonna get to we're basically gonna be winning 50% or basically 500, right? If the guys don't take any improvement. So I think that's very significant. That's very significant. And I think this number here, like I had to put this out there. Although I think this is a little skewed, like I said, because of we're pulling in Dallas's team defense and not necessarily just Jalen Brunson's defense. And so that's what's impacting this number here, and that's probably why it's as low as this is. But if you look at just Jalen Brunson's offense alone, it suggests that the New York Knicks are going to win 50% of their games if the rest of the team plays the same way. The rest of our team plays the same way they played last year. So again, it looks like it's a good signing, and to me, the numbers suggest it could be a good signing. But that's if Jalen Brunson is actually a solid or okay defender. He doesn't have to be a plus defender. If he's just okay, then I think we're gonna he is gonna have a big impact on the team overall in terms of the team's win percent. But if he is a bad defender, right, and you know, and part of the reason the Dallas Mavericks defense was as bad as it was because of Jalen Brunson, then yeah, the Knicks might be in some trouble next year, especially if the rest of the team plays the same way they played last year. Let me know what you guys think. That's pretty much what I have. It's let me know what you think. Please like, subscribe, also comment below. I'll be more than happy to answer your questions.